Well, hey, welcome back to another episode of the YouSchool podcast. I am Scott Schimmel, your one and only host, and I'm here with a pretty new friend, Justin Lipford. And Justin, one, welcome to the show. Two, thanks for being a new friend, which I think that's okay to say.
Yeah,
And
absolutely.
then three, would you please kind of introduce yourself professionally, personally? Like, who the heck are you?
Yeah, I love that, man. Well, hey, Scott, I appreciate you having me on here. Thank you so much. My name is Justin Lipford. I am the Director of Community Engagement here with the YMCA. I've actually been a YMCA employee for the past 8.5 years, but really been engaged in community work, community development work for the entirety of my career, which has been over 25 years. So I just love the work. I'm a San Diego local. I'm a father of two beautiful children, husband of with my wife, I consider my best friend, and I'm just excited to have conversations with all those that like to talk, man.
What I don't know this yet. This is a good chance for me to get to know you. I don't know really what drove you into community engagement work. Was that modeled for you? Was that a career path that you were aware of? Like, how did that happen?
Never knew of it as a career path. Basically, through my years in working for community based organizations, which I started off when I was 20, and I'm going to be 45. So when I got into the line of work, there what I saw is that there's great ways to engage and work with clientele or participants of programs. And for myself, it was just about engaging in an authentic conversation, creating authentic space, and sharing moments and time with
Hmm.
people. And what I found was that was always very, very beneficial to whatever kind of service I was a practitioner of. And I felt that that
Yeah.
same approach was applicable to engaging in the community. And now working for the YMCA, we have a big enough of an audience that just gives me a chance to just go out and have conversations, man, and dialogue like we did the other day.
Yeah. Well, my experience with the Y until recently has been pretty limited, I guess.
Mhm.
I mean, I went to camp in seventh grade for 5 days
Mhm.
and apparently it was through the YMCA, and that was basically it. Except that I know the song, I know about it,
Yeah.
and my guess though is most people aren't really familiar, especially with the side of work that you do.
Yeah.
If you know about the Y, you know about camps, you know about gyms, you know about summer camps, like, but what do you do?
Yeah. Yeah. I agree. Hey, I was right there with you, man. The song is what I knew, and I knew there was a
Yep.
YMCA camp. I mean, that was my experience as well, man. And it wasn't until I actually came to work for the Y that I knew the fullness of what we have to offer our community. So yes, we
Huh.
have our gyms and swims, with our traditional impactful services. But the YMCA for over 50 years here in San Diego has been serving the homeless youth or youngsters experiencing homelessness, working with foster care youth and those getting out of the foster care system, supporting families through mental health services and one-on-one and group counseling, and really helping the next generation get meaningful employment and get on some kind of path for their own prosperity. When I came to work at the Y, I was asked to be a program director of what was referred to as a transitional living program. The program is called Turning Point. And here we have youngsters ages 18 to 21, with or without
Huh.
children, who are experiencing homelessness. The YMCA actually owns an apartment where we provide this service. So youngsters can live with us 2 years at a time, get off the streets, and while in the program, experience a whole host of enrichment, case management, therapy,
Huh.
counseling, all those kinds of services. So it's really, really cool stuff, man.
My wife just today, well, I should say this week, found out about in our kids' school district, there's more than a few. Apparently, she heard today 600 kids that are affected by homelessness in the district. And we're in Poway Unified, which is this kind of almost nationally known,
Right.
high achieving district in the suburbs.
Oh,
And I wasn't maybe as shocked as she was because I've talked to you and I've talked to other folks, but still, that is pretty shocking if you just let that sit in for a second. I guess one, I want to tease out some of that from your
mhm.
perspective, having you've worked in that world for a long time. And homelessness, especially in San Diego, I mean, all of California has become, at least, I mean, a bigger problem, way more on the consciousness level.
Mhm.
What is going on? Like, can you kind of help us unpack? And my real question to get to is, what do we do about it?
Yeah.
How do someone like us like respond?
Yeah, I can't. That's it's shocking for me to hear those numbers in that school district as well. But it's also reiterates that right now there is a housing crisis. That there's just not enough affordable housing to
Yeah.
support families and individuals who rank on all levels of the economic chain. They're just not enough.
Yeah.
And so what we've seen through our eyes is a lot of the families that we tend to serve usually live paycheck to paycheck. are not
Hmm.
necessarily able to be able to take care of themselves through economic strain or hardship. So if there's a need to be an emergency or something may happen, that can become very, very impactful on a family's ability to sustain themselves, right? And then when we think of
Yeah.
young people in general, those that have come from marginalized communities and those that really have been maybe in the cycles of poverty for generations, right? These
Mm.
families and these youngsters, they just do not have enough of a social network to be able to help them when they're encountering hardship. So an example
Yeah.
being, if there's a youngster who for whatever reason not able to live in their home, whether it's they're leaving because fear of family. So what we see is that there's a lot of family rejection, specifically as
Hmm.
youngsters are self-identifying within the LGBTQ communities, right?
Mm.
There's family rejection, you got to go. That's an issue. Another issue being is that some families just cannot afford to keep a young adult in their homes for
Mm.
another variety of reasons. So what happens with those
Yeah.
kids is when they're on the streets, they don't have a network that they can call upon that can provide long-term consistent housing. Now they're resilient and they may have the ability to grab a couch for a couple of days here or stay,
Hmm.
guest room here a couple of days, or maybe park their car in someone's driveway for a couple of days, but nothing consistent. And as a
Yeah.
consequence, that strain really stops anyone's ability to be fully productive, and just to be able to engage in all the daily responsibilities. So it just makes it hard. And on top of that,
Yeah.
if you're a student, I mean, that's even that much more difficult.
One thing you didn't mention there, which I think you and I talked about it the other day a little bit, you didn't mention drugs. There,
Mhm.
the idea conceptually that a lot of people have that kids are on the street because of drugs. What
Yeah.
do we do about the drug problem? So
Yeah.
why didn't you mention that?
Yeah, it's as we talked about, it's one of the questions I get asked the most, or not necessarily a question, but one of the bigger assumptions that I hear the most is that youngsters are on the streets because of drug use, and it's their drug use that is their number one barrier for them reaching stability. And I'm not going to say that that dynamic does not exist because I've encountered it, but by and by, the ones that I encounter the most do not have a drug issue. They might be
Huh.
a traditional young person going experimenting, but nothing that would be
Yeah.
diagnosed as a full-on problem. So that actually turns
Yeah.
out to be one of the fewer causes of why youngsters are on the streets. And I just think it's important for the community to know that, because what ends up happening is an immediate bias kicks in, and the brain tells that
Mm.
individual if they're on the streets because of drug use, then they're on the streets because of their
Yeah.
own accord, which means they can get
Right.
off the streets as soon as they quit the drugs, right? So it's just
Right.
some inaccuracies.
Yeah. That sounds very self-soothing in some ways.
Mhm.
Like I can release myself of any obligation or even feeling if it's just, well, it's just their problem. That's their
Right.
fault. And or they came from bad homes. Like it's just, what am I going to do about it?
Yes.
You obviously have a different perspective, and something I'd love for you to talk about is what you see in those kids. You mentioned resilience. Like,
Mhm.
what is it that you see in them that you would say is an asset or a strength?
Well, I've stayed in this line of work as long as I have, just because there's nothing better than seeing a young person tap into their own resilience and really have this unwavering hope that they are going to become successful. They are going to find their path. They're just a few barriers away from getting there, but they're just focused on that they will be successful. And I love
Yeah.
that. I absolutely love that, because I always feel that it's that grit and that resilience that really makes all of us who we are, and our stories about how we've the things we've overcame, and when I talk to these youngsters, and specifically, man, when I think of even young parents that are experiencing homelessness, young moms, young single moms
Yeah.
that are put in positions where they have to wake up super early in the morning to take their kids on the bus to the babysitter, then jump back on the bus
Yeah.
to go to city college, and then jump on the bus to go to the part-time job, jump back on the bus to pick up the
Huh.
kids, and jump on the bus to come home. Like that is a scenario that many young moms are experiencing, yet they continue to do it, yet they continue to find a
Wow.
way to be great and bring opportunity to their kids, right? So it's that energy that I get really excited
Yeah.
about, and want to get the community at large to match and to appreciate. Because I mean, at the end of the day, how many great CEOs are on the streets right now that have the ability to fully become who they are.
Yeah.
And it's not even just that, it's like how many of the next great artists and the next great
Yeah.
people that can have impact on the community that are out there. It's just like
Yeah.
lost potential.
Well, that's there's something ironic there. The last couple of weeks with YouSchool, I've been focusing on the idea of building resilience in kids,
Mm-hmm.
something that's lacking in a lot of the kids, maybe my own, at least in the community that I spend time in, Poway Unified.
Mm-hmm.
And that's probably the number one, as you talked about, for me, the number one question I get from parents is like, how do I help a kid who seems to get overwhelmed by nothing? You
Mm-hmm.
know, the idea that they don't really have much grit or persistence. And, you know, the teacher's mad at them, so they crumble. They didn't make the team the first time, so they quit. Like,
Mm-hmm.
and so we're actually spending a lot of time cultivating that. How do you actually, you know, intentionally design experiences for your own children where they toughen up?
Yeah.
And you're talking about someone that's their same age that has no problem toughening up.
Right. Yeah, well, and it's taking that and applying it though, right? Taking that strength, and for the youngsters I've come to know, it's reaffirming to them that look, you look how much you've gone through, and look, you're still waking up with a
Yeah,
smile, you're still waking up joking, you're still waking up hopeful. Understand that what that is that you've determined internally that you're going to find a way to keep moving forward, and letting them know that that's a
yeah,
strength and validating that. And I'll tell you, when I think of even my own kids, yeah, my kids are soft. They are soft, man. But they go and encounter it within their own reality. They're encountering their own difficulties, their own
yeah,
pressures. It's going to happen no matter where you go. And so for me, it's just
yeah.
just trying to get my kids to understand that there's strength in what you do. Just know it.
Yeah, how do you do that? Because even as you and I talk as dads,
Hmm.
I'm tempted to maybe criticize my kids for what they're not yet,
Yeah,
rather than look for what they already are and have.
yeah.
How have you kind of navigated that?
Well, when I'm at my best as a parent, and there's the whole, sometimes I'm great, sometimes I'm not, but when I'm fully aware and accessing my my full emotional intelligence with my kids, it really is that I want to understand life through their experience. Tell me your
Yeah,
experience. Tell me what you're doing. And even though some of my own biases will come up as being like, oh, that's silly or that's nothing, or like, why was that even a big deal? Knowing to them that's not the case. Their reality is completely different. And I just try
yeah,
my best. I try my best to be able to sustain
yeah,
that perspective and work with them. So, like my son, who is 7, playing baseball, terrified of people, super shy, ultra bashful, and knowing that the first game he cried because he didn't want to go. The second game he actually went, but he cried on the bench because he didn't want to play. The third game he went
yeah,
out there, and then by the fourth game he found his groove, right, and just being engaged in those victories is what I'm hoping is going to allow them to see that they do have grit. They all do. It's tough being a
yeah,
kid. They all got grit.
yeah. And I think that also speaks to just in that dynamic, which kind of circles back to the why, the opportunity for a coach, a volunteer coach, another parent, another dad, another mom, to be able to help that kid navigate that and maybe affirm
Mhm.
and a kid in a way that their parents maybe can't see. Sometimes it's really hard to see your kids
You
for who they are
for sure.
when they're annoying all the time.
You're so right, man. Yeah, man. And I believe this is true for all sections of our society. It's our network that determines our ability to be successful. It has a hand in and an
Mm,
influence in that, and yes, even for our kids, when me and you are off as dads, I hope that there's a coach or a teacher or an older brother or older sister
yeah,
that can say like, "Wow, what you did was great." And I see you
yeah,
and I hear you. I do
yeah,
my best to keep that filter going. But again, yeah, my kids could be annoying, bro, and it gets in the way. And it turns me into a caveman opposed to the father I want to be.
totally. Well, you took a long walk recently, and I'd love for you to talk about that. Share what the walk was.
Yeah. It's funny. My Forrest Gump adventure. The past 2 years, myself and my colleague have participated in what's called the Solidarity Journey, and this is something we made up as a bit of a gimmick and a way of
Hmm.
expanding some awareness in the San Diego community's eyes about the high rates of youngsters experiencing homelessness. So last year when we first did it, it was a 3-day journey where we started in Oceanside, the most northern part of the
Mm,
San Diego County, and made our way to the most southern part of the international border. And along the way, we had a chance to have some media ops and run some great community conversations. Well, this year we replicated it, but we wanted to go a little bit bigger to have a little more impact. So we started off in Long Beach, and over a series of 5 days, we made our way down from Long Beach right back down to the border. And it was cool. It was along the
Dang.
way we would sleep at different YMCA's. So our YMCA in Encinitas, the EkiY, allowed us to sleep there one night, and then the Point Loma Y, then the Copley Y. So it was really a great way of weaving together within internally within the organization this deeper sense of what we do from our impacts lens. But on the community's
Cool.
eyes, the external community, man, we were on so many different media channels and great radio interviews, and stopping in each town and having like gatherings where community members can come up and talk. Even in Point Loma, when we were walking through the Ocean Beach area into Point Loma, there's a few adults experiencing homelessness that kind of joined in the
Yeah.
walk, and we're asking questions and we're
Wow.
having dialogue. And what was really great to hear is how they understand as well, these adults, that for them, their homeless journey started when they were young. They've been experiencing housing instability their
Yeah.
whole life.
Wow.
And it really then kind of circles back to the point of it all, of what we do at the Y, is prevention. We believe if you
Mm.
invest in these youngsters, you're preventing
Yeah.
chronic homelessness, and you're really finding a way to get people excited. So the solidarity journey did just that, man. It's just got
That's
people in
cool.
all corners to be like, aha, I see what's happening and I can help.
What's next? What's the next journey?
Well, it was a 3-year campaign when we came up with the idea. And so next year, the idea is to start in San Diego and make our way up to Sacramento, to the Capitol building. And,
Jeez.
along the way, engage in other organizations in some of the major cities, and really have a bit of a proclamation, and having people sign this proclamation saying that we absolutely see and love our youngsters experiencing homelessness, and as a community, we're willing to
Yeah.
rally. But on top of that, we all have a responsibility. And from the government standpoint,
Mm.
they have influence on dollars programs like ours that the Y can
Yeah.
receive.
Are there way? I guess I've my last question in terms of involvement. How can somebody get involved? Kind of on two levels. One would be, are there practical things like a website,
Hmm.
where to give? But maybe in a less more informal way, you know, how do I move towards young people that are experiencing homelessness? Like, what can I do besides think that's a shame,
Right.
or even just give $1?
Yeah, yeah, I love that, man. And I don't. I think there's a lot of people that are apathetic to any youngster experiencing homelessness, mainly just because we're just inundated with images of homelessness, and we just feel so helpless on what we can do, right? And all kinds of other
Yeah.
things. But I have seen the dial move from apathy to empathy. I've seen it happen. And what happens, one,
Mm.
is this basic kind of like aha moment. Like, there are young people experiencing this. It means something to me. I want to help out. I want to teach my kids. I want to ensure my community is doing everything we can. Like, all of those dialogues are
Yeah.
going on all throughout the community, and I love it. Yes, there is opportunities to invest. So I say number one is, as we as a community educate ourselves on any of the social issues, let's look at the experts that have been doing the work and learning from that work for a trusted period of time. YMCA has
Mm.
been doing the work for 50 years. We are invested.
Yeah.
We've purchased apartments. We purchased programs to help these youngsters. We're not the only ones in San Diego. There are others, right?
Yeah.
But I say it's, how can you best partner with those groups that are putting in the work? But also,
Yeah.
let me talk to you as from a father standpoint, because I do this with my kids as well. It's being able to have these tough conversations with our kids about these issues, and be
Mm.
able to talk about these issues in a dignified way. And I think that's what we start off by saying is, when we pull up, my kid asked me the other day when we were going to the zoo, we pulled up right there by Balboa Park. He said, someone experiencing homelessness. Why do you think they're out
Yeah.
there? He's asked me this before, right? But I said, I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know why they're out there. But the bottom line
Yeah.
is they're out there. And then if we can model behaviors and whatever it might be. But
Mm.
I think it's just saying, how dignified do we talk about people experiencing
Yeah.
homelessness with their family, and that translates later into action.
Yeah. Yeah. I'll never forget. I was on a family trip with a good friend when I was in high school, college age, and the dad. We were driving to the hotel. This is like in Nevada, and the dad saw a guy experiencing homelessness and did a U-turn. I
Mhm.
mean, I didn't. I had no clue. I'm just literally along for the ride. And he pulls up, gets out of the car, and we were in the car for a good 45 minutes or an hour while my friend's dad was talking to him.
Mhm.
And the impression that gave and has left on me 25, 30 years later, that's how you respond. There's something there.
Mhm.
And every time I don't, I think of him, and I
Yeah.
think there's
Yeah.
there's more to do. So I love that. How do we talk about them with dignity and empathy,
Yeah.
and how we model that? That's awesome.
It's such a powerful thing, man. And I know, I try to do that with my kids as much as possible. We pull up, like, smile, say hello, engage in a
Yep.
conversation. If I got
Yep.
a couple dollars to kick down, I'll kick them down. If I don't, I'll say, I'm sorry, I don't, but I wish you a good day. Real practical
Yeah.
things. That goes a long way, especially in someone who's having a very difficult time in life.
Yeah.
That goes a long way.
Yeah. And now my wife and I are thinking, how do we help our kids who are going to school with kids who are experiencing some version of
Hmm.
homelessness, affected by it, just to have maybe a more sensitive radar to what kids are going through.
Yeah.
Every kid goes through tough stuff, but some are more extraordinary than others.
It definitely broadens their interpretation of the world, right? And I think
Yeah.
that's important so that they just don't see themselves as the sole character in this whole thing we call life. But what I would say too, even like real practical speaking, is every school has a homeless youth liaison. So someone
Hmm.
within the school's district or multiple people within the
Yeah.
district that are aware of our homeless students, that are aware of the kids in the foster care system, and that are doing
Mm.
things to support them. I always think it's a nice call to action to be able to find out who that is, send a lovely email
Yeah.
saying, hey,
Yeah.
whatever we can do, let us know, and start the
Totally.
dialogue from there.
That's awesome. Super practical. Justin, thank you. And thanks for your time here, what you're doing. Obviously you don't need the thanks because it's what you do and who you are, but I'm impressed, and I can't wait to kind of cook up some more schemes together
I love it,
in the
brother.
future.
I love it. Thank you so much, man. Good to see you again, and have a great day.
Thanks. Hey, thanks for joining in on the YouSchool podcast. We'd love to share with you the resources available on our website at theyouschool.com. Not just articles, ebooks, worksheets, and other podcast episodes, but specifically, you should know about a free course we have available called the Real Me course. It's digital, it's interactive, and it'll guide you to get clearer about who you are and the great story you could tell with your life. So go register for a free account and get started on the Real Me course today at theyouschool.com. That's theyouschool.com.